Hi guys, this is Kumar. Welcome to my classroom. Today we are going to explore the steps of scientific method. I'm going to walk you through the steps of the scientific method, but you need two index cards for the new vocabulary words you're going to learn. So take out two index cards and I'll tell you which are the words you're going to write on those index cards for the vocabularies. So let's start with what exactly is the scientific method. So this is going to be your first word for your vocabulary word. So you can pause the video and write down what's a scientific method. So write down on the front of the index card the scientific method and the back the definition, which says the scientific method involves a series of steps that are used to investigate a natural occurrence. So that's a kind of intimidating, but usually it's a common sense of looking at the world. So that's how the scientific methods are, and it involves a series of steps. And what you're doing is you're investigating a question or a problem through those steps. So let's look at what are the different steps for scientific method. So these are altogether all those steps. The step one is problem or question. Second, observation or research. Third, formulate a hypothesis. Fourth, you do an experiment. And after doing an experiment, you collect and analyze the results. And after that, you analyze the results, you come to a conclusion. And after that conclusion, if it matches your hypothesis, you communicate the results through various media or different things like publishing a paper or communicating through emails. So you communicate your results after that. So these are pretty much all those steps of the scientific method. You will find in the various sources in different books or internet, you will find these steps in different ways or arrangement. But altogether, if you look at these steps, these are the most common used in the scientific method. So let's look at each of the steps and we'll give a problem to our scientific method steps. So the scientific method, it starts with the first step, which is problem or question. So you develop a question or problem that can be solved through experimentation. So there can be a simple problem that says, like, when you go out, you see a lot of water puddles on the road. So you ask a question, why there is puddles on the road. So it can be as simple as that question, or it can be something complex, that why the life is not there at the different planets. So there can be lots of questions you can ask, and that will be based upon some problems. So let's take an example of a real world, like the scientists, they have worked upon this problem, and it's the famous biosphere. So this is an Earth system which was a kind of research facility located in Oracle, Arizona. So it was originally meant to demonstrate the viability of closed ecological system to support and maintain human life in the outer space. So how did that happen? So the scientists, they observed that there is no life on the other planets. So they researched about that why. Let's take any example of a planet like Mars. So they explored Mars and found that there is no life on there. And they asked a question, why is that so? Why there is no life on the other planet? So they researched about that and found that Earth is having a perfect environment to create a life, and we call that as a biosphere. So let's see, based upon that question, how the scientists were able to conduct some scientific method steps. So the next method in the steps in the scientific method was they formulated a hypothesis. they predicted a possible answer to the problem. So going back to the problem was they came up with a question that why the life is not possible at Mars or any other planet. So that was a kind of question, and they researched and found a kind of answer to their question was that there is no biosphere at the other planets. So they come up with a hypothesis. So hypothesis is a kind of prediction or a possible answer to that problem. So they answered the question that why the life is not possible on other planets by giving a kind of answer that if we create an artificial biosphere, then the life is possible on the other planet. So one thing you have to make sure about hypothesis is that it starts with a if, and then you answer your question with a then. So in writing a hypothesis, you have to include if and then. So for our problem that while the life was not possible on Mars or other planet, they came up with a kind of answer to that. If we create an artificial biosphere, then life is possible on another planet. The next was the experiment. They have to develop and follow up kind of procedure. So in this, you include all the detail of the material which you are going to use and the steps you're going to follow for that experiment. So in our biosphere example, and one of the important thing about the experiment is you have to outcome with a measurable or quantifiable data so that you can analyze that and you can come to a conclusion from that. So in an experiment for creating a life on outer space, they created an artificial biosphere, and they created ocean, rainforest, savannas, thorn scrub, and this was how it looks like. So all the steps of the experiment were foreseen before they created this biosphere, and after that they created different experiments inside that. After, when the next step of doing experiment is you collect and analyze the results. So in biosphere, they collected different data about like the percentage of oxygen, those who were living inside, what were their body, how was it reacting to that artificial biosphere, and they made a kind of data to analyze the results, whether the creating of an artificial biosphere is going to support life on the other planets or not. So for that, they collected and analyzed the results. So the fifth step in our scientific method is collect and analyze results. So if you want to have sure that those data are perfect, you confirm the results by retesting that. And you include all the tables, graphs, and photographs for that. The last part is you come to a conclusion from that data, which includes a statement that accepts or rejects the hypothesis. So going back to our hypothesis, that was, if we create an artificial biosphere, then life is possible on the planet. So that was our hypothesis. So you analyze and collect different data and matches whether the life, if we create an artificial biosphere outside Earth, is that possible to support life or not. So based upon the different data, you include a statement that accepts or rejects the hypothesis. So you make a recommendation for further study and possible improvement to that procedure. So in that, the case of biosphere, based upon the different data, they created another project which they called that as a Biosphere 2. So you can read more detail about Biosphere on internet, or we are going to discuss more in detail in the class. The last step for scientific method is you communicate results. So you have to be prepared to present the project to an audience, or you publish your results in a research paper, or you write a lab report for your project. So you communicate the results at the end. So can you think you can name all the 7 steps? If yes, take a paper, write down on that all those 7 steps, and we are going to do more in detail, taking more examples to understand the steps of scientific method. Till then, study hard.